All right, thank you for that introduction. Today, I'd like to share with you three completed projects that have inspired ongoing work in my lab. And all of these three projects involve the coupled mechanics at the interface of fluids and elastic solids. I came to UCF about 4 years ago, and before coming to UCF, I worked for an aerospace company called Meggitt. And at my arrival at UCF, I founded the FAST Lab, or the Fluids and Structures Laboratory, which has convenient double meaning there because we do a lot of high-speed imaging. And the projects that I have ongoing in the FAST Lab involve coupled fluid structure interaction, which for the most part has permutations in jet, drop, and splash mechanics. There's a subset of work that we have ongoing in the lab too on insect locomotion with both flying and crawling insects. So I'm generally interested in the physics of living systems and biomechanics. I know that's a very loaded word. And in my teaching, I've done undergraduate thermodynamics, graduate and undergraduate fluid mechanics, a biolocomotion course for honors students that I encourage you to send good honor students my way to take that course in the spring, and undergraduate dynamics. So the motivation behind my research can be broadly segregated into two high-level categories: fluid control and biology. In the area of fluid control, we're looking to tune jet stability with elastic nozzles for applications in drug delivery, cleaning, printing, bioprinting, and fuel delivery. We aim to use elastic membranes to collect moisture, characterize fluid properties, self-assemble structures through capillarity. And in the same vein, we aim to design structures that can efficaciously self-dry under surface motion. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides. And then finally, we aim to control splashes at water entry and induce passive motion by tinkering with material and wetting properties. Biological motivations of our work lie in insect and vector control, so controlling disease-carrying insects or just pests by disrupting their life cycle and finding limitations in their behavior, that limitations in behavior or limitations in their physiology. Basically trying to understand how they work in their physical world and mimic these behaviors in small systems, mimic the behaviors of small natural systems, which could be insects or even insect wings, sort of subset of an organism. We're interested in anti-fouling, so we have actually a funded project ongoing in anti-fouling, which I won't get to talk about today, and characterizing the link between physical pressures and the evolution of organisms, specifically how foliage has evolved to cope with environmental pressures such as rainfall. So in the first project, we're going to look at a paper published a couple years ago in PNAS at the high-speed microjets that issue from citrus peels. So these jets have an average velocity of around 10 meters a second. It's quite fast. And we've measured one as fast as 30 meters a second. And I can summarize the findings of this study by saying that high-speed jetting requires a soft, compressible base layer, which in this case is the pith, covered by a stiffer, stronger external covering that withstands the buildup of fluid pressure and fails abruptly. So by combining hydraulic theory and relations from brittle fracture, we can estimate how jet velocity changes with the stiffness of that external covering or the zest. And our results are shown in the plot. So we find that as peels stiffen, either by naturally being stiffer, limes versus oranges, for example, or by aging, this jet velocity will increase. All right, and so this work inspires work that's ongoing in my lab right now, and that's also funded by my career award. We're trying to uncover the link between small jet stability and the propensity of the orifice to deform with flow. In other words, can we use a soft orifice to make jets more stable, either to orifice imperfections or environmental perturbations? And of course, we want to understand how this ability of a soft orifice to make a jet more stable can scale across jet velocity, different fluid properties, different types of environmental perturbations, etc. In the second study, we're taking an action inspired by mosquitoes, and that's this very low amplitude, high frequency flap to dry their wings, to uncover the highly coupled mechanics between a sloshing drop and an elastic cantilever. So when we vibrate the base of this cantilever with a drop deposited on it, we observe three principal ejection modes: sliding, normal, and pinch off. Pinch off is what you're seeing in the video now. And the occurrence of each ejection mode is dependent on the cantilever and drop properties, and most dependent on the wettability of the cantilever, which at least divides regimes from partial to complete liquid removal. So we know that this drop sloshing, which is modulated by viscosity, damps beam vibration. So we're now trying to understand the link between these fluid properties, viscosity and surface tension, and a drop's effectiveness as a damper. So here we have a kind of preliminary plot where we're looking at the specific damping capacity of a drop across a vibration cycle, a number of vibration cycles. Okay, and so finally, let's take a peek into my work into water entry. So here we're taking spheres and coating them heterogeneously with a hydrophobic coating and changing the orientation to see how this changes splash height, cavity depth, and then passive motion of the sphere. As you can see in the rightmost video there, we can actually generate a bit of lift by having an asymmetric cavity formed behind the impacting sphere. So in a loosely connected work, we're exchanging that impacting sphere for an impacting drop and changing and now making the solid a water strider. It's more in this case the water strider is more or less passive, at least in the early parts of the impact. And what we're interested here is to understand what the mechanisms, both active and passive, are of these striders to survive rainfall events in the wild, and hope eventually to connect the physics that we uncover from this study with the distribution of microplastics in the ocean as they encounter rainfall events. Okay, so my research outlook in the near term is to continue the highly coupled fluid structure interaction work that we're doing, but to add controls to our problem so that we can smartly either sense or excite surfaces to gather, characterize, or eject drops, and to bolster the imaging techniques that we have in the lab, so that not only so that we have more precise more precise measurements of the fluid mechanic parameters that we're studying, but also to enable in the long term for us to go to a smaller scale drops that are more relevant to respiratory illness, which is a big topic these days. And then finally, I'd like to strengthen the portfolio for environmentally founded and relevant problems in fluid mechanics. And thus, I'm looking for collaborators that can provide biologically or environmentally motivated problems. So people in environmental engineering, civil engineering, and biology. And we're looking for experts that can provide us with materials with novel wetting properties, and experts that are whose bread and butter is nonlinear material modeling, or CFD, or PIV, so that we can do some of these we can do these highly coupled studies in a bit more complete way. We have some collaborations now in machine learning that have been fruitful, but I'm certainly looking for more. And then finally, controls related to the near-term bullet number 1. So looking to target mission-based agencies and other funders like the USDA, again, to sort of strengthen this environmentally motivated problem, or environmentally motivated problems, and then continue my success with NSF. And then my outreach goals would be to bolster the connection that I've got with Oviedo High School, and maybe reach out to other high schools and sort of do similar stuff. We're here mentoring science fair students and allowing them to come into our lab to perform experiments. So I'll end with my acknowledgement slide. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to speaking with a number of you in the future.